Okay, looks like we are up and going. Yep, and folks in here. Hi, how y'all doing? I'm gonna get started here in a second. Obviously, I'm still playing catch up as well as you guys are. Decided to take a break and eat dinner after we recorded the podcast. We didn't know about Honey Badger there, and I'm gonna stop calling him that. His name's Tyrann Mathieu, so we're just gonna go with that, or I'm just gonna get stupid with it. So you're gonna have a pod up here in a couple of minutes where we're talking about some other things going on and so forth. I'll do another pod here probably with Chris after this show. It'll be up later tonight, so keep an eye. Hope you guys are all doing good. Lots of folks in here. Nice to see you. If you're new, say hi to everybody. Appreciate your time. Not going to get to my comments tonight. We're just going to start on the questions because I'm sure everybody has a bunch. I do too. They just got Tyrann Mathieu, just announced within the last 20 minutes or so. A guy that started out as a nickel corner kind of type, played some safety. He's basically the early edition of Budda Baker. So I think that the big thing that you're going to get out of it, especially for Brett Veach, is going to be that he's diverse. He can do a lot of things. He can come down and cover slot receivers if he has to. He has that physicality. He's a very athletic guy. He's on the small side. I think he's actually under 5'10". I'll have to go back and check the combine numbers, but if I remember correctly, when I was first doing the athletic matrix, he was in the initial class that I did, and for a couple of seasons, he had the best athletic matrix score of any DB that came out. So very interesting guy. So he can do that. He's played a lot of like that strong kind of robber stuff in the middle too. But the interesting thing, the report from Nate Taylor says that he's signed to play the center field. I think that's really interesting because he clearly has the range for it. He is fast enough to cover sideline to sideline. He's got ball skills. He produced last season 8 PBUs, a couple of picks. Was it 4? Plus some a ton of tackles and plus a couple of sacks, actually. So they blitzed him fairly well. He's had a couple of injuries in the past, and I see some of you commenting about the injuries, and that's a fair take. You got to worry about that. But last season, he played in all but one game for the Houston Texans. So 17 games in a season, the most snaps of any DB that I can find in PFF right now. And I've had a chance to look at PFF grades. I think you all know that I don't put a ton of stock in PFF grades by themselves. I want to see the production. So I'm always looking at stats, where he lined up and that kind of thing. And he lined up at several positions: slot corner, free safety in about 3 games, as well as a lot of strong safety. So again, he's versatile. He's going to give Steve Spagnuolo that option to play with Eric Berry in a way that they can swap if they need to. I think what you're going to be able to see, and first and foremost, again, this all rides on them feeling, like I put in the snapshot for this video, all feeling that they have Eric Berry in a way that he can be healthy. That's going to be key. Cool Mars, thank you for your donation. I appreciate that. Every time I see you, you're dropping something for me. I appreciate that. So that's the interesting thing. They have to be good with where Eric Berry is. And what that allows you to do is make those switches. I still expect them to play a lot of single high. But if they get themselves through motion or anything else where they feel they need to switch off rather than trying to trace somebody across the field, then it makes it real simple. You can drop Mathieu down and let him take on a slot corner as a CB. He's got the athleticism to do that. He's got coverage. And then Eric can go back and play the free. We've seen him do that, and you know that he can do pretty well in that role. I think that's probably the goal of what they're going for here. Mike Garafolo actually had something to say about they wanted somebody to bring some culture change. And Matthew's, he's a brash dude. He talks a lot of trash, has since he came in the league. Was very close to Deion Sanders when he entered the league, and I remember him being almost to the point of arrogance had overwhelmed what he could do on the field. I think in the last couple of seasons, you've seen his production and his play catch up to his mouth. And I think that's a good thing. At this point, I feel like he's a more mature player that should be able to handle the responsibilities that Steve Spagnuolo is going to be able to put on him. So that's a really good thing to see. And if Eric Berry is as healthy as they feel and is as healthy as they want him to be, man, that's a lot of money back there. but that's a heck of a duo. Guys that can do anything, guys that can cover a lot of different things. You still got to look at what you're going to do with players, big tight ends and that kind of thing. Guys not named Gronk, I think if Barry's back to full health, I think you're going to feel good about it. So that's where we start. I'm seeing a lot of questions start going, so I'll start answering your guys' questions, and I can come back to something later. So, cool, Marsh. I see that. Thank you. Are you happy with Ward, Fuller, Mathieu, Barry, and pick 61 as our secondary? No, I want a primetime corner in the first round. If I'm me, I'm not comfortable with Ward being my outside guy. I'd like to pick up another one at least, if not two. This may straddle the safety position for a while. It doesn't do anything to fix your corner situation. So I still feel like Fuller's best in the slot, and then you can drop Mathieu if you need to. But you still want some outside guys with some length, with some strength. And I think you're going to see Steve Spagnuolo be more aggressive and get back to what we talked about during last season and have his guys actually be physical at the line of scrimmage and put their hands on receivers and disrupt routes. And for that, you want to get some young guys with a lot of length and a lot of power. Both the Johnson kids from Houston and from Kentucky might be options. I think probably the best man guy in the top three is Greedy Williams. He also seems to be the guy who's least willing to tackle. So I don't know how that's going to play off, but we'll see. Ethan Hunt, thoughts on Roby or Verret? I wouldn't take either of them if it were me. I think Verret's clearly injury prone. I don't think he can survive an entire season. And Roby, honestly, when he was third fiddle to Talib and Harris, I thought he did fine. When he had to be the guy on the outside, I don't think he played well, and I don't think he will in the future. I think Fuller's got to be the guy inside at the nickel, and I think that's probably just the way it's going to go. I wouldn't really go after either of those guys. I think you can get better in the draft, or at least even talent in the draft. Trey Mavorick, thank you. I appreciate the donation. Okay, Ethan, again, you think the Chuds? Oh, no, that was your question, Ethan. Thanks. Kareem Jackson, next Texan to go to KC. I don't think so. This is pushing what they can do. I think this was like kind of a sellout for get one position that can really impact your secondary and do something to bolster it without making any other moves. I think they can sustain these two, Barry and Mathieu, and still have some cap room. But were they wanting to do anything else with anybody of significance, I think they have to look at making room. We'll see what the report comes out with, because I'm not sure if Justin Houston has hit the Chiefs cap number in terms of the official NFLPA list. That I think they had him at $8 million this morning. So that's going to be interesting to see too. So draft LBs and D-line. The D-line starters are pretty set, but yeah, I can see them wanting depth, particularly three technique penetrator depth on this defensive line. I'm not sure Hamilton brings that much to you. I know Williams can do some. I think he's a little more able to penetrate and really shoot gaps more than we thought he could, but I'm not sure that you want to rely on that. So I do think bolstering the D-line in the draft is going to be something important. So next question. Yeah, Collins got paid. And honestly, I think Earl Thomas is going to get paid. He's wanting $15 million. He's a veteran. He can sit there and wait. Somebody's going to pay him eventually. The Cowboys didn't do it. And clearly the Chiefs thought that they could get good play, maybe not elite play out of Mathieu at the free safety, but Mathieu can come down and play strong. He can come down and play corner. And I don't think that you can say the same things about Earl Thomas. So you get 90% of the free safety play and you get a whole lot of extra. And I think for a first-year defense and a coordinator that has looked at the tape and knows what he has on there, and he's clearly made decisions. The release of Justin Houston is clearly one of those decisions that for the money, he didn't think he was going to get the impact at the DN spot out of Justin Houston, which, personally, Justin Houston is one of my favorite players on this Chiefs roster for the last few years. And I can understand between the salary and the age and the injuries and moving to this new system, I can see how it maybe didn't fit. But I still like the player. I think he still has a lot left in the tank. I think he's going to make some more plays for a team maybe up north in Green Bay. So keep an eye out for that. Next question. What are the odds that we trade for Devon White now? None. The Chiefs like Hitchens. They feel that he can continue to play in the Spags defense. He's going back to the 4-3, which is where he's from. So that makes sense. I do think they'll add a linebacker in the draft, but they're not going after Devon White. I think that if they trade up, I think they're going after one of the corners or one of the edge rushers. I just don't think that they're going to value the capital they have to give up to get to Devon White in the draft. So, by the way, just want to give a shout out to Upslope Brewing in Boulder. Citra Pale Ale is the beer of the night. Okay. Let's see. Next question. Gary Holland. How are you, Gary? Ryan, do you see the Chiefs sign Jared Cook? I think it's an interesting option. Right now, I think the money's the thing holding it back. I also think that as much as everybody wants to say about how great the top couple of tight ends are, I think there's a lot of depth in that tight end class. I think you can get somebody in the third, fourth, maybe even the fifth round that is an athlete, a pass catcher that you can really work with. The Chiefs don't want to sell out and run the ball with power. So while I would love to see a blocking tight end or a guy like Hawkinson who can block that well, I don't think the Chiefs see that as a priority. So I think they're going to be looking for pass catching tight ends that are athletic, that can be matchup problems in coverage. And so I think there's a couple of those. I really like the kid from San Jose State. I did his couple of games of his film the other night. Josh Oliver, I think is his name. I got to double check that. But a guy that should be maybe third, fourth round kind of thing that I think could play a good role as a second tight end. What are the odds? Oh, same question. Sorry. Why does everybody forget about Watts? Because Watts isn't a proven commodity at this point. He couldn't stay healthy, and he didn't play to assignment very tough either, to tell you the truth. So I think he showed some of his weaknesses, and we'll see where he goes from here. But I think that's why they're not placing all their eggs in the Armani Watts basket. Do Packers, Niners still guiding over Ford? Supposedly, I haven't heard anything where either team, either the 49ers or the Packers, are out on Ford. But I do understand that I think in terms of experience, I think the Packers as an organization, if they're going to dabble in free agency, I think they'd rather go off of a guy like Houston rather than trade for Ford, because you're trading future picks, and they're just a franchise that is pretty conservative about that kind of thing. So I could be wrong, but I think it's a destination that could happen. Mosley. I'm just seeing Mosley question mark. Maybe no, there's several other people asking about him. Okay. Making sure. Oh, I scrolled too far. Hold on a second. Okay, Grant Jones, do you see the Chiefs making any offensive additions in free agency? I think they could, but I think it's going to be really at the bargain basement level. There's still some cuts they could make. Obviously, with Mathieu there, clearly moves into a starter position. So you still have Watts, Lucas, Murray, and Sorensen. I kind of feel like Spags is going to like Sorensen because Sorensen can blitz well. And I think Steve Spagnuolo wants to blitz with his safeties. So that kind of makes sense to me. So you might see him stay, but some of the others are going to have to go because you're not going to carry 6 safeties on this roster. You might carry 10. You should carry 10 DBs. You might carry 11. 6 of them are not going to be safeties. You just can't get away with that. So there are some salaries that will give you a little bit of relief, and you can maybe pick up somebody else. Samir Mika, cheers to you. I appreciate that. And your donation, and that's not the first time, so thank you very much. Packers, Niners, yep. Mosley, CJ Mosley. CJ is going to get a lot of offers from what I hear from a couple of different people. Oh, shoot. Sorry, I got to mute the phone. There's still calls coming in. What I've heard about CJ Mosley is he's going to have multiple offers. There's a bunch of people negotiating right now. I don't think the Chiefs are going to be one of them. Again, I don't think they value the middle linebacker as somebody they want to go out, especially after they went out in free agency, spent money on a middle linebacker last year, and it didn't work out yet. So I don't see that happening. They're going to ride with Hitch for now and see what they can do with Ragland is my guess, and go from there. So look for the draft for sure. What do you think of Washington having all these DBs getting paid so much? Sounds like Washington, right? Washington blew the Landon Collins contract out of the water. I'm surprised that even they would give up that much money. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's going to make $1 million more a year than Eric Berry. And as good as he's been, he doesn't have the same coverage skills. He does not have that same value. So he is much more a box safety only than Eric Berry is. So I find it pretty interesting. Okay, moving on. Next question, Ethan Hunt. Who will our center be next year? It's Reader. And I think they've been grooming him for a while. I think with the injury situation with Miss Morse has been coming for so long. And Mitch is a good dude. He's an excellent center. But he has not been able to stay healthy. And so I think they had Reader kind of lined up to take over his spot. I believe that's who the starter will be. So, good luck to Mitch. Glad he's not in the AFC West because I was hearing rumors about the Broncos going after him. But he is still in the AFC, so they're going to see him again if the Bills can make it up there. So we'll find out. Should we cut Sorensen and Henne? They're not going to cut Henne. They want an experienced backup quarterback that if should anything happen to Pat Mahomes for a game or two or whatever, he turns his ankle or whatever, that they have a guy that is capable of running the offense as intricate as it is, and you need a veteran for that. So Henne's not going anywhere. Sorensen, I personally would cut. I think he's overpaid for what he can do, especially given that now they've spent money at the position. But I think Spags will actually like him, so he may be here again. And if that's the way you're going to use him as a blitzing safety in the box, okay, that's the thing that I think Sorensen does best. Washington, answered that one. Coolmars, can Chiefs move down and get Baker from Georgia? I don't know. He ran a little bit slow. He hasn't done the agility drills, and I think that's probably what some of the teams want to see is confirmation of what they saw on film. I think he might be there, but man, he's one of the top three. And at the end of the day, despite all the quarterbacks and everything else, cornerback is a top tier position. So I don't think that they're going to be able to move down and get him. He might be there at 29. But I think honestly, in all reality, I think they're probably going to have to go up and get him. I expect him to be the third probably of the top three cornerbacks, probably in the mid 20s, just a few picks before the Chiefs are right now. Let's see. Paul Jonathan Starmer. Jonathan Paul. Sorry, I did that backwards. Do you see the Chiefs wanting to trade up to get Sweat? Is he still on top of the Chiefs draft board? I don't know that he ever was on top of the Chiefs draft board. I don't have any insight into actually how they've graded out. And I honestly, anybody who tells you they do is probably guessing a little bit. I think Sweat's interesting. He's a little stiff, but he's a little light. And don't get overly blown away by his 40-yard dash. Yes, it was great. He's a very good athlete. He doesn't play 40 yards at a time. He plays 10 at most. Watch the 3-cone, which was also very good, but he's not the elite that his 40 makes him sound. He's not Von Miller. So I think they could go up and get him. He's one of the few people I would target, but it would take getting into the top 15, maybe even the top 10. I like Josh Allen. I don't think I like him in the top 10, but I think that's where he's going to go. So I don't think you can go get him either just before anybody asks. Next question. Lewis said Mathieu was top 3 ranked safety. I believe that. He played a ton of snaps and he played well. Running back in the 4th round. Could be they'd have to trade to get there, though, because right now they don't have a 4th round pick. There's a big gap. They pick at the end of the 3rd, and then I think it's like 167, beginning of the 5th, I think it is. So let's see here. I think the guards are pretty set. I think Daniel Collins asked, how do you feel about our guard center situation? And I think they're pretty set. Binder Believer, thank you for your donation. I appreciate that. Hit me with a question, too, because if you're going to make a donation, I'm going to answer your question. What happened to 20, the Chiefs corner? He's a free agent, and they're not going to bring him back. I don't think he played well enough for them to want to make the investment, and somebody's going to give him an $8 to $10 million contract. I think the Chiefs don't see Steven Nelson being worth that. And I have to agree. I don't think he's a shutdown corner. He's at best a number 2, but I don't think you can pay him like a 1B and make it work for your team. Okay, looks like I missed a couple of people between that and that. Okay, so you guys asked that one. I talked about that. Craig Murphy, draft another Kelsey type tight end. Yeah, I think you want to get an athlete pass catcher. That's what they want in this offense. Somebody that can line up in line when they have to, but more importantly, can split out, can run out of the H, can run in that trio position. When they set up tight ends as blockers out there. in that particular formation. I think that's what they're looking for, and there are a number out there. The other guy, Moreau from LSU, is another mover that I think is going to be underrated, available, and definitely on the second day, maybe even on the third day, that I think they could look at. To answer that one, that was cool. Mars again about Nelson. Yeah, they're just not going to invest in him, I don't think. Josh Eaton, did Eric Berry restructure or will he be cut? Neither is my guess right now. No word about him restructuring, and it would have to be done here within the next 72 hours for it to hit for the new league year. I'm sorry, not even that, 36 hours now. So I don't think he's going to be cut. I think they think he's healthy. They're going to pair him with Mathieu, and they're going to try to have an elite safety tandem. If he's healthy, they do. So they're rolling the dice a little bit, but I think they're going with it. Next, Marshall Smith. Do we need a draft pick to replace Houston? I think you definitely do. They need something. Right now they have D Ford, who's still out there, going to be that Leo type spot. Still a question against the run, but he can certainly rush the passer. You have to get some depth behind him. I don't know how they feel about Tano Passanio. I don't know if his being a healthy scratch late in the season was because of Bob Sutton or because of somebody else. So we'll find that out pretty soon. But you have to see Breland Speaks take a step forward. And if he can't, you got to have some insurance for that as well. So I do expect them to draft at least one edge rusher. Yes, AB is now in Oakland. We'll talk about that another time. Does the Honey Badger signing do anything with Lucas for Joshua Rue? I don't think so. I think Lucas is a guy that they like too, and I think if there's going to be one of the survivors of the smaller safeties the Chiefs already have, I think it's more likely to be him. What do you think of the signing of Carlos Hyde? I really think that it's a nice way to round out a true committee for the Chiefs to have. You can give the ball to Damian and do what you want to do on first down. You can come in with some power with Hyde, but Hyde can still catch the ball. Hyde can block. He is injury prone. I don't think he's finished a whole season in his whole career. If I'm wrong, let me know, but I don't think so. So not making him the primary makes sense. But I will say also that I really have faith in what Darrell Williams can do. He catches the ball well. He runs with power well. He is very much like Carlos Hyde, but he hasn't had any injuries. So I don't know that one limits the other, but I'm hoping that it can be a three-way group committee in the backfield, and I really like what that brings to the table. Grant Jones, do you see the Chiefs moving on from Barry by the 15th deadline? No, I don't think so. And Amos doesn't really thrill me. When you look at what he's able to produce in terms of like PBUs and interceptions, it doesn't really excite me much at all. I don't see him as anything. So, and especially now they have Mathieu, I don't think you're going to see another safety free agent. You might see one in the draft, but I don't think you're going to see another safety free agent. Lots of questions here. Do we need Barry and Mathieu? Okay. I don't know what that means, Otis, so I'm not even going to repeat you. Eric Berry is going to be a Chief in 2019. Yes, I think you're right. Any chance of signing Shane Ray? The problem with Shane Ray is he doesn't fit the defense anymore. He is an outside linebacker. He can pass rush, but he's an OLB. He's not a defensive end. I think that might have shut the door on him. Is there an outside chance? Sure, because you play a nickel enough and you want to have a rotation of pass rushers. It is a possibility, but I tend to doubt it. I think he'd be much lower on the free agency board now, just because of the position. Morse got $11 million from Buffalo. You're absolutely right. Could we draft a running back in the 4th round? Young bro. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. You'd have to move around because they don't have a 4th round pick. But it's possible. I think day 3 is as early as you could possibly do it. There'll be UDFAs that are pretty good too. So I'm not too worried about the running back position. Does this team need Niche G? Does this team need a position wide receiver? I think you mean possession wide receiver, but I'm not sure. Like Edelman to help on 3rd down. I think they need a slot, but I wouldn't call him a possession guy. I think they need somebody that can really get loose with change of direction. A pivot type player. Like Edelman. Edelman is not a possession receiver. So I think that's something they should look at. Oh, sorry about the phone calls, folks. I think they could do that. I don't know if they're going to spend any more money on it, though. the the slot receivers are making all kinds of money in free agency. So again, that's another position I'd look for in the draft. There's a lot of interesting guys out there that are kind of smaller stature, but have really quicks coming out of cuts. And I think that's going to be something they should look for. Will the play calling fix LB play in the package defense? I think you're going to see Dorian O'Daniel play a lot more at LB. And I think the play calling is going to be more aggressive. I think that will help. I don't know if it'll fix it, but I think you're going to see O'Daniel and Hitchens play a lot of the nickel linebackers. We'll know as it goes along, but I think it's going to help. Can Barry be cut Friday without paying the bonus? He can be cut, but it doesn't save you anything. It's like $1.5 million if you cut him now. If you want to get any savings, you'd have to wait until after June 1st, and that makes no sense at all when you're trying to sign and improve your roster. So I don't see it happening. And whose question was that? Sorry. Sean B was about the flexible fix the defense. And yes. I don't know where it went. Sorry. I lost it. Nathan, you're right. There are a lot of safeties on this roster. That will be changing. Another Sorensen comment. Colby Chastain, what do you do with your various ward, especially at the end of last year? What is the drink tonight? The drink tonight, once again, Upslope Brewing, Citra Pale Ale. Very good. One of my favorite everydayers. I think Ward, you let him compete. I think you bring in some competition for the outside corner spot and you let him compete. I think they like what they have in him. I think he's a little slight. I think he's a little grabby, but he did make improvements during the year. Are you ready to put your Super Bowl kind of run on a corner that young or a corner that isn't that highly touted? I don't know. They may. I think they need to bring in a lot of competition for him. Guys that have what they have in that. From Ward's a little slight. I want to get a bigger, stronger, longer, lengthen the arm type corner. Next question. Oh, Cool Mars. Are the Chiefs cutting Spencer Ware? They don't have to. He's a free agent. They're not going to bring him back, though. So I think Spencer Ware's days in Kansas City are done. David Angel Molina, thank you. I appreciate the donation. Yes, we need corners, at least a pair of them. New blood, big blood is what I'm saying. I assumed Ragland would be squeezed out of the starting lineup in the 4-3. Rob Self, you're right, and I agree. I don't know that he's going to be a starter. You might play around with trying to make him a Sam in the base defense, especially if they're not going to play the under as much. If they're going to play a traditional 4-3 where all three of the linebackers are away from the line of scrimmage, then I think Rags can play some. You saw him late in the season play the ball well, had a couple of interceptions. I think he can drop into short zones. I think he's challenged in man. He's not a man cover guy, but he can play short zones. And I think he's decent against the run. He's got to get better. He's got to get a lot more aggressive. But I think this coaching staff should be able to do that. They play aggressive. Spagnuolo plays aggressive. So I think a change of coaching staff, Reggie Ragland's one of the guys I think can benefit from it the most. So keep an eye out for that. We'll see what goes on, especially in the OTAs. Let's see here. Wesley Perkins, do you think we get CJ Mosley? No, I don't think they're even close to in that race. That's going to be a big contract. Craig Murphy, does Dorian O'Daniel start in this? Yes, he is the will linebacker. Binder Believer, what type of corners does Spags like? He likes man corners. He likes to be aggressive. He does press a lot, but he also drops into cover 3 a lot, which looks like man until they bail. So you got to be an athlete for Spags too. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a tightrope to walk, but there's going to be guys in the draft that are available. Gary Holland, do you see the Chiefs moving up or down in the draft? One or the other. If they have a guy they really want to go after at either edge or corner, I think they go up. If those guys just go too soon before they can get something done, I think you'll see them drop back into the top of the second round and try to pick up another second or third. And I think that's okay because there's a lot of depth at the second and third rounds in this draft. Gary, good question. Evan Asias, thoughts on the 49ers might be willing to give up their number 2 overall pick for D Ford and possibly drafting Nick Bosa. If the Niners give up number 2 overall for D Ford, John Lynch is going to get fired. That's crazy. They might give up pick 34, number 2 in the second round. Whew. But if they give up number 2 overall, Yeah, that's crazy. And I think Nick Bosa will be there. I do believe that the Cardinals are going to take that quarterback just because he's somebody that Cliff recruited, and I think he feels can run the system pretty easily. What's next? What player will be on this team for 2019? Ford or Barry or neither? I think they might both. Right now, we'll see if anybody comes through with the right trade value, and that's the only way that I think Chiefs will move on from D Ford. Realistically, what can we get for Ford? I think Ford's maybe a second round pick. I don't think anybody's going to give you a first rounder, and I don't think they're going to give you more than maybe a second and a fourth. That might be stretching it. So that's what I think is realistic, and I think that's okay. The problem is it's not a really reflection on D Ford and the player that he is, although it is thin. I mean, he only has really performed this season in one other half. It's that he's not a defensive end; he's an outside linebacker. He's not, the stature isn't there for a D end. So it's about fit there as well. So if he does move on, don't hold it against D Ford, because I think it's partially the fit with the defense. It's Kojak. Hey Ryan, good to see you. Thanks, I appreciate that. How do you feel about Hyde and Tyrann signings? Just hit back. You can go back to the beginning of this, or it'll post again. I already talked a ton about him. I think plus sides on both. Should we pursue Ronald Darby? No, too hurt for me, too small for me. Not the kind of guy that I think Spags wants. Okay, getting some of the double questions now. We're going to wrap it up here in a few minutes, folks. Does Veach get aggressive and trade up? I think he does if he has the guy. Darby is a free agent. Rock on. Oh, Renard Francis, appreciate the donation. Thank you. If you have a question, hit it here below before I wrap up. Wow, a lot of questions. You guys are doing great tonight. Dang. Almost 400 people. Well done, you guys. Do you see this? Do you see the Chiefs drafting offensive line, Gary Holland? Yeah, I think it'll probably be a day 3, but they could use a swing tackle. And if they have any qualms about injuries to Cam Irving, then they have to look at it. I don't know if they need to go center, because I think Cam can go over there if he has to. So I think they're probably pretty set. Do you feel Greedy Williams? I like Greedy as a press guy. I think it's the only system he can survive in, because he's pretty skinny. And I'm not sure that I want to see his change of direction, which he didn't run at the combine. Sometimes I feel like he gets a little bit lost, and he certainly doesn't want to tackle. And I don't think that's the kind of attitude that the Chiefs want. They brought in Mathieu because they want a tone setter. They want somebody else that's going to be another alpha in there with Eric Berry, somebody that's going to bring the hammer. And I just don't think that's Greedy Williams. I think it comes down to, I like Byron Murphy. I think he's the best corner in this class, but I think he's better in the zone. I think he's a little too small to press really effectively in the NFL, especially in the AFC West. So I think it comes down to Baker or Greedy. But Greedy, man, there's some interesting things about him. So we'll see what they come up with. Charles Omenihu, I do like him. I think he'll be I think value for me is around the 3rd round. I haven't watched all of his film, just one game so far, but I think others will find that he's worth more, so I don't expect him to be there for the Chiefs. Greedy. Justin Robertson, Ryan Khalil as a center, a good option. Getting up there in age, I don't know if you want to go there. I think they're going to ride with Ryder and just kind of call it quits at that. Dieter, I think Dieter makes this team. I hope he does. I think he's shown some spark. So I don't think they're going to go after a free agent corner. Sorry, K69. Maybe Callahan's a decent option, but I think it's going to be money. At this point, it's about money after what they just spent tonight. So who are the starting 3 linebackers? Right now, it's Hitch in the middle, Dorian O'Daniel at the will, and if they're playing, the 4 off the ball, then it could be Rags or it could be a rookie or something like that. You might even see, I don't know, there are a couple of other options. Rocky Sin is a dark horse. Yeah, I think he'll go probably in the 2nd round. Some are saying 1st now, and I just don't see that, but I think he's an option for the Chiefs. They would like what he does, even though he doesn't have the super long speed. Okay, now we're starting to talk a lot of draft, and there's way too much to talk draft here. So I appreciate you guys. I'm going to sign off for now. I'll have another video later in the week, and we'll do this again on Monday night. Last question, though, since Joe just brought it up. Anything about Anthony Sherman? Nothing yet, but I do expect him to be back. I think he'll be a late re-signing like he was last year, so no worries. But after that, I'm going to say, hey, thank you all. I appreciate the time. I'll be back next week, and I'll have a video probably Thursday morning, so watch out for that. Appreciate you all, and have a good night.